that you guys can hear me. That would be wonderful before I get too deep into this. Thank you, Nicole. And we'll get right into the slideshow. Thank you all for joining me. I'm sure we'll have a couple more people hop in as we go, but we'll get right into this. There we go. So I think you all know me by now. I'm pretty sure at least. But in case you're someone new, and we may have a few new folks, we've had a couple changes to the roster and the wait list over the last really 48 hours. So my name is Abby. I coordinate the trip for all of you with some wonderful help from some key staff and other folks here at the AYCC and beyond. And you have hopefully had a couple meetings with me. If not, welcome, and we're super happy to have you on board. Today we're going to go over room assignments really briefly. I just have a quick update in that regard. And then we're going to talk about the day 6 itinerary, day 7 itinerary. I want to touch on spending money and kind of recommendations for that, so you guys have some time to prep since we're still like 5-6 weeks out from the trip. And then we're going to talk about in-person meeting that happens April 1st. So room assignments, I don't need to show you the Excel sheet again. The update just is that I believe everyone has their roommate at this point. I think I have one person who just recently joined from the wait list that I need to work on, but everyone else, thank you so much for the communication and getting right back to me when I had questions. I know some of you, I made some roommate assignments, and then the roommates that I paired you with couldn't go on the trip anymore, so that made some adjustments. We had to kind of go with the flow, so I super appreciate everyone being really communicative as we work that out. But I think everything is all set. If you have any specific questions about who you're rooming with or your student, please reach out to me, because on my end, it all looks like it's the way it's supposed to be as of right now, which is exciting stuff. We don't often get to have that finalized this far out from the trip. So knock on wood, that is good news. Thank you all. That's all because you guys have been awesome. So I want to jump right into day 6 itinerary. Day 6 is probably arguably one of the longest days on the trip. If you remember back to last meeting, we went over day 5, and day 5 is our Gettysburg Day, which is a really exciting day, but it's a pretty slow paced, some time on the bus, some time doing guided tours on the bus. You're not necessarily getting that like 10,000 step day on day 5. And that's strategically planned because day 6 is a ton of time off the bus, a ton of time in New York City, and a lot of walking around. So on day 6, it's super early start. So I'll let you guys know that right off the bat. We'll have breakfast ready for you in the morning. We're going to make sure that we bring some of our own to-go containers. So if you want to come down and grab breakfast and bring it on the bus, you can that morning, rather than eat. I know a lot of people have a hard time eating at 5 a.m., but I don't want you to get into the city with nothing in your bellies. So we'll have to-go containers with breakfast that morning, so you can bring what you want on the bus. We also always have snacks on the bus. We've talked about that a few different times. And then we're going to get right into New York City because we want to go to the 9/11 Memorial Grounds in New York City before our ferry tickets happen at 9 o'clock. So we're going to go to the 9/11 memorial pools. We don't go into the museum. The museum's not even open that early in the morning. So if you want to go to the actual 9/11 Memorial Museum in New York City, that's something you should book for your free time after the fact. And I'll talk in a minute about kind of good timing to make that happen if that's something you're interested in doing. But as a group, we'll get into the city. We get dropped off at the 9/11 Memorial Grounds. You'll have some time to walk around, really experience that. Pat and Lisa on the bus will give you some history about it. I found we have a couple good videos that we like to share as you guys are riding in to watch morning of, but it's a really awesome place. There are a ton of hidden gems to kind of find. There's a lot of obvious history there, but some things that are a little more subtle than just the memorial pool. So there's some cool stuff to see while you're there. It's very, very impactful. At around 9 o'clock, well, probably a little bit earlier than that, so probably like 8:30-ish, so after about an hour at being the memorial grounds, you guys are going to walk as a group over to where we have to check in with our tickets for the ferry to go to Liberty and Ellis Island. And we have to go through security for that process. So if you have been to a really like a bigger concert or gone through airport security, this security to get on the ferry is pretty much airport security, except you don't have to take off your shoes. So when you guys get off the bus in the morning, you'll want to definitely have whatever you need for the memorial grounds and to go out to Liberty and Ellis Island, but you don't necessarily need to pack everything you need for the day because you'll be getting back on the bus after the islands. And the less you pack for this morning, the smoother it will be to get through security. And Lisa and Pat, again, will prep you for security, but the biggest thing is only one person, just like the airport, can go through that kind of security metal detector at a time. So we always recommend that as a chaperone, you send your student through first so you can have eyes on them ahead of you the entire time. And then you follow behind them, and your student should not be going anywhere when they get to the other side of that security line. So just like in the airport, they get to a spot where they can kind of put their jacket on, grab their backpack and stuff out of the bins, and they need to wait right there for you, and then you guys will move on to actually getting on the ferry together. And that's to make sure that we don't have any students or chaperones separated in that kind of security process. It's usually pretty smooth, and 9 times out of 10 our whole group gets on the same ferry without any issue, especially a group of this size. Where we only have about 50 people, I'm not super concerned for you folks this year, but it's just the most crucial thing is to make sure that your student goes through security first so you can have eyes on them, and then they can wait for the adult to come behind. Because what happens is on that other side of the metal detector, on that kind of far side of where the big security room is, there's more security guards who are trying to get people to move down the walkway and get down onto the ferry, and they'll pretty seriously usher adults down. They'll say, no, you need to keep going, you can't wait for your group, da 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 da. But if they see a student standing there, they won't force them to go without their adult. So that also helps with, the students just need to know, like, no, I'm waiting for my adult, I'm waiting for my mom, whatever, and the security guards will let them stand there while you guys make it through. So again, it's just like airport security. It's just like a more like a bigger concert that you may go to. And it's the second time we'll do security on the trip, because there's also security when we go to Arlington a few days ahead of this. And that's a much smaller facility, and you're not necessarily worried about where you're going to end up on the other side. So that's kind of a good trial run for security as a big group. If you're chaperoning more than one student, have both of them go through ahead of you. If you're in a group with another parent and a buddy, I would also say you could probably send one chaperone ahead first, wait for the students, and then wait for the rest of your group. You could do that if you know the other chaperone or want to kind of work with some other chaperones, but you as the adult always want to make sure you have eyes on your kiddo. You guys will get on the ferry. I'm going to show you some maps in just a minute. And then once you guys get out to Liberty Island, you can move from Liberty Island to Ellis Island whenever you would like. So there's several things to go see and do on Liberty Island. We used to do pedestal passes. It's really hard to get group pedestal passes now, but they also built a really cool information center that you can go on top of that gets you almost as high as the pedestal, and that's just a free option. You go up, you don't have to kind of deal with the hullabaloo of going inside the Statue of Liberty, so that's a cool thing to see. They have audio tours that you can do for free that you pick up right when you get off the ferry, so there's a handful of things that you can do on Liberty Island. I'm going to show you the ferry schedule in just a minute, but whenever you and your student or you and your group are ready, you guys can hop on the ferry that goes over to Ellis Island. And that is where I would really plan ahead of how much time you think you want to spend there, because some people want to go in, want to really look in the archives, want to go through the whole museum. It's a really meaningful part of the trip for them, and for some, they just kind of like to see it, like to walk around the lobby. It's a really impressive building. There's some good information there. And they don't need necessarily an hour and a half. They're kind of okay with maybe 45 minutes, use the restroom, and then get on the ferry to go back to Battery Park. Because what everyone does need to do is meet back at Battery Park at 11:30. And again, I'm going to show you the ferry schedule in just a minute. And when you meet back at Battery Park, The bus is going to pick you up. So Lisa and Pat will get you guys all together, make sure you're all accounted for. You meet the bus and get on the bus really, really quickly. So they'll probably line you up by whoever was sitting in the back of the bus. So back of the bus will be the front of the line on the side of the street to the front of the bus. So we can go in really fast, boom, boom, boom. And then the bus will drive you up towards that Times Square area, and you guys will get dropped off at Bryant Park to start your free time. So as you think about free time and what you want to do, if you're going to take the bus up to the Times Square area, Bryant Park is going to be your starting point to get to wherever you want to go for your free time. That being said, if you want to do the 9/11 Memorial Museum in New York City, I would recommend that you do that instead of getting on the bus to go up to Times Square. So stay right down in that area, get tickets to go into the museum, walk from where the ferry is back to where that museum is. It's not a very far walk. And then go to the museum and use like an Uber or a Lyft or something like that to get up to the Times Square area. Or if you are really brave, use the subway, use public transportation, that's up to you. But that would be my recommendation if seeing that museum is something that is high on your priority list while we're in New York City, because it doesn't really make any sense at all to take the bus all the way up to Times Square, be there, and then go back down to where that ferry and 9/11 memorial area is. With the traffic and stuff, it's just not the most efficient way to use your time in the afternoon. So if you want to do that, you can get tickets. I think tickets for adults are about $40 to go into the museum, and students are a little bit less. I think students are maybe like 25, 30. But if that's something you want to do, everyone I know who's been there speaks so highly of it. It's a really, really impactful part of their trip. I personally have never been able to go. I always stick with the majority of the group. But I've never had anyone go and regret it, for sure. Lisa, did you have something you wanted to chime in with?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that a lot of our people in the past, while they're down there too, have also looked into and gone to the top of Freedom Tower 1. So you might want to look into that if that's something that might interest you, with or in lieu of the museum. There's a huge um, floor to ceiling glass observation at the top floor, and it's pretty impressive. So that's just another option of something to do while you're down there in that area.
Yes, thank you. That definitely is another cool one. So once you're done with your free time, that's about 8 o'clock. You're meeting back where you got dropped off at Bryant Park. Again, I'm going to show you a map in just a minute, and then you guys will go out to your hotel for the night. So again, super, super long day. It's a busy day, but this is really, I mean, day 7, we do a little bit of time in Boston, but this is your last really, significant day of the trip. So we try and make sure you guys have the opportunity to pack in as much as possible. The only other thing that I would note with the way our kind of schedule landed this year with the ferry is that if you wanted to do a Broadway show and still make the bus at 8 o'clock, you may be able to get like a matinee time for that, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock Broadway performance, be able to get that in and then still get on the bus at 8 o'clock. We also usually always, that's a silly sentence. We usually have people who want to go to a Broadway show, and sometimes they book that for the evening slot, and then they get their own transportation from New York City back to the hotel in Newark, which you guys are more than welcome to do. You just have to make sure that Pat and Lisa, as your bus leaders, know that you're not going to get on the bus at 8 o'clock, because we don't want to have a bus waiting for you when you're really enjoying, dream day at a Broadway show. So that's absolutely an option for you guys. Do it. We have people do it before. The best way to get from New York City back out to Newark is just an Uber or a Lyft. It's pretty reasonable. You can schedule them ahead of time. You just have to make sure you have the apps on your phone. But again, that's another thing where we've had people do it a fair amount in the past and they never regret it. They always have a good time. And the next day we kick off the morning with a long drive on the bus, so you have plenty of time to catch up on sleep. So if that's something you want to do as a Broadway show, either that matinee or that late night time, this is your shot. This is absolutely a good time to do that. So So this is a map. So jumping back to where you get on and off the ferry, this yellow arrow, you're walking from this direction again as a group, and down into Battery Park. So we go to two different parks on this day. One is Battery Park and one is Bryant Park. Battery Park is where the ferry is. And then you go through security down here. And I can pull up a couple other maps to show you. So this is just Google Maps. So up here in this area is the 9/11 Memorial Pools. And again, as a group, you walk down to the ferry area. It says a 16-minute walk. It doesn't take that long, especially with a group this size. It's going to be easy for you guys to all stay together, easy for you guys to all cross the street. They'll get you time. They'll get you there in line. Pat and Lisa will have the ticket. It just scans on their phone. You guys will hop right in line, go through security, get on the ferry. It's a fairly simple process, but we do walk that kind of distance. And then that is the distance that you would probably be walking if you're going to go back to the museum or to the Freedom Tower. It's just that, 10, 12-minute walk back up there from that general area. I also wanted to show this map. So when we talk about the ferry and the ferry system, the ferry only goes in one direction. So we're leaving from the New York ferry at Castle Clinton National Monument. So this is the area that you're going from. The ferry always goes all the way out to Liberty Island, and then you can either get off the ferry at Liberty Island or you can stay on the ferry at Liberty Island. If you stay on the ferry at Liberty Island, it goes over to Ellis Island. You can either get off there or you can stay on. If you stay on, you go back to New York. So the biggest thing, the number one thing, anytime when you decide it's time to go from Liberty Island to Ellis Island or Ellis Island to New York, make sure you are getting on the New York ferry. Do not get on the ferry for New Jersey. There's two separate lines. Usually there aren't a ton of people in the New Jersey line, but always, always, always make sure you're getting on the ferry to New York. You do not want to end up on the New Jersey side of this experience. We'll solve that problem if we get there, but knock on wood, just make sure you're getting on the New York ferry. And then the last thing is, if I can get to it, I can move this, is just a map. So when we talk about Bryant Park, when we get down there, this is Bryant Park way down here. There are a bunch of businesses around Bryant Park. There are a couple businesses that have restrooms. The Bryant Park restrooms themselves are pretty hit or miss cleanliness wise. But Bryant Park is very close to Times Square. It's just, a quick hop and you're over in that area. So if anything you're looking to do is in that general area, you're close by. And you can see Broadway runs right here. So we really do our best to get you right in the middle of the city as close as we can. And usually that goes pretty smoothly, getting up there at this time. There have been a couple instances where we could either get off the bus a couple blocks away from Bryant Park and start our free time immediately, or we could sit in traffic for another hour to get to Bryant Park, and we've decided, we're just going to get off the bus here. But that's kind of a game time call in that regard. So this is where you'll get dropped off. It's also where you will get picked up. And again, there are a bunch of stores, a bunch of restaurants right in that area. You're right in the thick of New York City. It's a good starting point for that free time for sure. And then the last thing, jumping back to the ferry. Sorry, we're jumping around a little bit. You guys will have this. I'm sure Pat and Lisa will text it out to everyone, but this is the ferry schedule for New York for the day you guys are in New York City. And then what I've circled is my best recommendation. So we're going to be heading out on the very first ferry of the day. And I would recommend, knowing that you're going to get to Liberty Island at about 9:25, shoot to get on the ferry for Ellis Island around 10:10, unless you really want a ton of time at Ellis Island, then you can get on a ferry sooner. You could do, the 9:45 or whatever. But I would recommend the 10:10 ferry from Liberty Island to Ellis Island, and that by the time you get out there, you'll have a little less than an hour at Ellis Island to hang out and look around. And then The last possible ferry you could take to get from Ellis Island to Battery Park for our meeting time at 11:30 is 11:20. So you need to, at minimum, be on this ferry. You could head over sooner if you want a little bit more time. You can, there's earlier options for sure, but everyone, the last ferry to be on time to meet your group will be at 11:20. So again, you guys will have this schedule. You guys will talk about it on the bus. But as far as planning your free time, this is how it goes. I will also throughout there is occasionally we have people on the trip who want to spend a lot of time at Ellis Island, like even more than what we are putting on here, what is capable in this 9 o'clock window to 11:20 window. If you want to spend more time at Ellis Island, you are more than welcome to do that, but it just may mean that you won't be able to go with the group on the bus back up to that Times Square area, and you would have to find your own transportation. But if that's what you want to do, you're more than welcome to. So if you have a specific person that you want to look up at Ellis Island, or if you really want to do a guided tour, anything like that, if that's what you've been looking forward to, do it, please, and then just figure out your own transportation to go wherever you're going to go for your free time. In New York City, that you totally have the autonomy to do that. You just need to communicate that with Lisa and Pat so they aren't waiting for you to get on the bus. The last thing I'll throw out there about New York is weather-wise, it's always a day that is pretty chilly, and then it also almost always is pretty warm. So in the morning, knowing that we're going to be going out there so early, you're probably going to want to have layers for this day for the morning at minimum. And then when you get back on the bus to go back uptown to the Times Square area, you can kind of drop off some of those layers and leave them on the bus. But historically, I think last year we went out at like 10 o'clock. I've been out there at a bunch of different times. It's usually always chilly on Liberty Island in the morning time. It takes a while to warm up. And then the other thing that you need to remember about walking around in the city is even if it's sunny out, the buildings are so tall, it's always shaded. It doesn't typically get like super duper hot when you're walking around New York City this time of year. So just you guys will keep an eye on the weather, but I can't recommend enough that New York City is the place that typically surprises us with how chilly it can be in the morning, and it's worth throwing in and I have it listed on the wait list, or I have it listed on the packing list. It's worth throwing in a set of gloves, a winter hat, or something just in case you need it for this morning. Because it really sucks if you don't have that, and then it super sucks if you have to spend like $30 to get a beanie for the day so your ears aren't freezing. So just remember that. That's why those items are on the packing list. I hope you don't need them, but it's better to have them just in case. So moving forward from day 6, but actually day 6 is a lot, so I guess I'll pause here if anyone has any day 6 specific questions, just because that was a ton of information. And you can either put the questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can just come off mute and ask. Other than Freedom Towers, anything specific we should see while in New York City? I have good food recommendations. That's probably my number one contribution to New York City. I will say last year we did, I got to go in the Empire State Building for the first time, and that was very cool. We got tickets ahead of time for that, and that was definitely a worthwhile experience. We also did the Harry Potter experience last year. I don't know if that is still in New York City, but if it is, that was very cool. And there's a ton of shopping to do. There's a ton of different things. I'll make sure to share our kind of big list of things to see in New York City. We also have a map that kind of lays out where everything is. But Grand Central Station, I mean, there's a lot of historical things to just go and see, and there's a good amount of really awesome museums. But usually by the time we get there, kids are pretty excited to shop. The Empire State Building is always a big one, a big hit. People like to see Broadway, even just walking up and down the street is very cool. And again, I have some pretty solid food recommendations. There's a place Lisa and I always go where it's milkshakes with a cheesecake on top of it. And it's very good.
Amazing.
It's yes, like when I tell you, I was just telling Pat today, I'm starting to get really, really sad that I'm not going on the trip this
Oh,
year. And one of the things that I keep like really triggers that feeling for me is I keep looking at all the food that I'm not going to be able to get to eat on the trip that I look forward to every year.
we'll send you
So yeah,
pictures.
yeah, we'll give you guys. I think I'm the most sad about a Philly cheesesteak. So I'll survive, but you guys, I'll make sure you have the best food recommendations for the trip, and then Lisa and Pat can fill you in on the historical stuff and the stuff that's really important. But I have the food list. Okay, well, if you have any other questions or any other suggestions, for food. If anyone's been to New York City, this is a great time, especially on the group, the Facebook group, to start sharing things that you're looking at, sharing links to any activities that you have found, or if you've been before, anything you really liked. That Facebook group is a great place to share that information. Last year, we had a couple different people share stuff that they were going to do in free time, but we also had, and I'll share it again this year, we were able to make it's called a guide on Apple Maps, where we all started adding the actual like addresses for the different things that we would see in each city, and that was a fun thing to be able to just have on hand. So if you have any more questions about day 6, any more suggestions, whatever, keep putting those in the chat and I'll make sure to circle back to those. But I want to start with day 7. Day 7 is our last day. So you guys will be having breakfast and departing with your luggage. You'll drive to Boston from Newark. There will be at least one stop, if not more, on that drive, just rest stops to make sure that everyone can use the restroom, grab a quick snack. And then when you get into Boston, you have from about 1:30 to 4 for free time in Boston. So that would be time where you should be grabbing, a real meal, something good to eat. Save your leftovers for the bus for later if you want. You can do some shopping. We'll give you a couple printouts for the Freedom Tour if you want to just kind of give yourself a guided tour around. There's also several different walking tours that you can join that are pretty reasonably priced. If you plan ahead, you could probably also get a duck tour in. Sometimes people will go to the aquarium for a few hours. It's not a ton of time, but it is enough time to see a couple things, check off a couple boxes. Some people like to go to the bakeries and get some stuff to bring home to their loved ones, since we're heading straight back after this, but you have some good time in Boston. We don't spend a ton of time. Back in the day, I don't know if they do them now, a lot of the 8th grade trips I know about go to Boston, so hopefully your 8th graders will get that opportunity to spend a little bit more, but we have enough time to stretch your legs, grab some food, do some shopping, see some cool stuff on the way. When you leave Boston, you're going to drive back to Maine. Again, you'll have a couple different rest stops on the way to make sure you can stretch your legs, use the restroom, grab some quick food. And then when you get to the AYCC, we'll have kind of some assignments to help unload the bus because, of course, we'll have everyone's luggage that will need to come off the bus. We'll want to make sure the bus is clean. We'll want to make sure no one's leaving anything behind. We have to bring some stuff back into the AYCC. So we kind of group work all of that. And then you guys head home. And that's kind of the wrap up of the trip. Everyone's usually very tired by this time, so we do as much as we can during the day to clean the bus and collect stuff and make sure everyone has what they need and all of that good stuff. But this is the end. So it's a bittersweet. Everyone's always very excited to go home. If you have people picking you up, we'll let you know, when you're an hour out and you need to let people know that you're almost home. But otherwise, the last day is a really simple, straightforward day. Any questions about day 7 before I move on? I did see one question about, is it possible to get tickets to go up into the crown of the Statue of Liberty? You are more than welcome to try. I don't know how many they've been releasing, but they've been doing some construction on the island and on the statue, and that has resulted in them just changing how many tickets they release for different levels of the statue. Um, so that's the reason why we couldn't get group tickets in to do the pedestal this year. We also didn't get group tickets last year because of the work that they're doing. They've been limiting group sizes, but if you want to try and get a ticket as an individual, you're more than welcome to. We'll be out on Liberty Island at like 9:30. So anything between around that 9:30 slot, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you could get over there to go into the Statue of Liberty if that's what you would like to do. More than welcome to. The pedestal is pretty cool. Like I said, with the new information center, you can get like a comparable viewpoint, at least if you just wanted to do it for the view of New York City. If you actually want to go in, then obviously then it's worth getting the ticket. And I'm not sure how expensive they are this year. But if they do give you the option, just remember that you don't need the ferry ticket. I've already purchased those for you. You only need the ticket to get in. So make sure you don't pay for a ferry ticket that you don't need. Hopefully save yourself a little bit of money. Speaking of money, I did want to talk about spending money for the trip, just because, again, we're about 5-6 weeks out. There are a couple options that we're going to talk about as far as how you help your students budget and keep track of their money on the trip. So I want to give you as much time as possible to figure out how you want to do that. It's different for a parent who's going with their student on the trip versus a parent who's sending their student with another parent or chaperone. So I understand that we have some good information, some successful ways people have done it in the past that we can talk about right now. But one of the questions we always get is how much spending money. And I like to break that into spending money for meals versus spending money for activities and purchases and buying themselves stuff. So this list I put together is all of the meals that we don't cover for the trip. So the AYCC pays for a good chunk of the meals. These are the meals that you guys are on your own for. So day one, you guys are responsible for your own breakfast, and then I listed roughly where you're going to be around that time, so you can kind of gauge in your head roughly a price point. So breakfast at a rest stop hopefully isn't going to cost you a ton of money, but it's going to definitely be more than, $5, $2. You're going to need something. And then lunch at a mall food court, you're probably looking at $15-ish, maybe a little bit less, but you guys know your kids, you know what they like to eat. And then there's sometimes like lunch in Philadelphia or dinner in DC, that could be a wide range of price points that you're looking at. So that's what you need to talk to your group about, especially if your student is traveling without you. Because you want to know if your student chaperone and their kind of friend group is planning for a sit-down dinner in DC, that's a lot more expensive than hitting up the food trucks. So plan that out carefully. Like I know lunch in Philadelphia, if you go to get a Philly cheesesteak at my favorite spot with some French fries, it's like $18 for a sandwich and some French fries and a drink combo. But if you're going to go to a nice sit-down Italian place, that price point is different. Same with lunch and dinner in New York City. If you're getting, a $6 slice of pizza for lunch is very different than sitting down and, getting a full meal and then the milkshake with the cheesecake on top. That's going to run you a little bit more than a slice of pizza. So it's really hard to nail down a specific number, especially with, things change every year. So all I can really say is just think ahead, plan ahead. And then we'll talk in a minute about how to kind of help budget and manage in case things fluctuate differently than how you thought. But talk with your groups, think about what you guys want to do, plan for a cushion, and know that there's a couple days where you aren't responsible for any of your meals. So that's a good break to kind of regroup if you need to. And then we end with a couple big meals that they're going to be responsible for. So they need to make sure that they have some of this meal money, which is definitely a need. They need to be able to eat. And make sure that they're budgeting for this appropriately. So the other piece is activities and purchases. So again, this is the same type of deal. the activities that are on the itinerary that we do as a group, the AYCC, we purchase those tickets, we organize that for you. But when you are in your free time, if you are doing an activity that costs money, then you should know for that and you should plan for that. So again, day by day, I listed out kind of where your free time is, and if we visit a mall, because that exponentially changes how much a student spends in a day from what I've noticed. And then I also listed some of the two popular gift shops, which are Mount Vernon and Gettysburg. So this is definitely not a need for purchases. This is a want for purchases. So talk with your student, think about um, what they want to do for activities. If if your student is traveling without you, then make sure you know what the chaperone has planned for activities. A lot of the activities are free or super, super reasonably priced, like less than $10 to go see some stuff. But some things are more expensive, like going up the Empire State Building or going to the museum at the 9/11 Memorial. Those are, $40, $50 a person. So that is a much bigger difference than if you just go to any of the Smithsonian museums. Almost all of those are free or $1. So very different price points. Make sure you look ahead. This number definitely depends on what you want to do for activities and what your student wants to purchase on the trip and what you want your student to have for access for funding to purchase things on the trip. So in that regard, here are some kind of successful ways that we've seen parents help their student budget on the trip, whether they're going with their student or not. So an old school way that works every single year, and we see it work every single year, is you have an envelope for every single day, and in that envelope for every single day for your student is the amount of cash that they have to spend that day. And if they don't spend all of the money that day, then they can roll that over to the next day or a different day, but that's kind of their allowance for the day. We've seen that every single year. It works every single year. The number one thing with that amount of cash is just to make sure it's being stored in a safe place and maybe not all in the same place, so that if they leave their backpack on a bench somewhere, hopefully that doesn't have every envelope of cash that they were supposed to have for the week. They should be taking out kind of what they need. So need a little bit of help managing that and making sure students are keeping track of that money, but a really solid option. The other thing that we see every year and that works really well is Pling or a similar teen debit card that parents can load for them every day or give them an allowance for the week. This is also a good option if if you're not traveling with your student, because then you can check what they're spending and upload money every morning for them or add more if something comes up. This is just kind of a nice option. Pling is through Bangor Savings, but I know that other banks and credit unions have similar options. We also see people use Apple Wallet. A lot of places use Apple Pay. So if you have that type of phone or something similar, that could be a solid option. We have also seen, and this is a scenario where you're traveling with your child or not, but essentially the chaperone keeps the need money, so the food money, and then their student has whatever the want money is, so the gifts and personal purchases. So whether you're the parent and you're going to kind of hold on to the money that they have for meals that they are responsible for, or if you're a parent and you're not traveling but you give the chaperone kind of whatever money that you want them to have for meals, and the chaperone's responsible for that so it doesn't get lost. That has worked, and then the students kind of have their allowance for any spending money that they want for gifts for themselves, gifts for others, and when it's spent, it's spent. That's an option, or any combination of this. We've also seen people have their students travel with a little bit of cash for every day, but they have a Pling or a similar type of debit card as a backup in case something happens and they need to be able to get more money to them. And if you're not traveling with your child, so if your child's going with someone else as a chaperone, I just strongly recommend that you have a plan set up ahead of time with that chaperone to get them money if something happens. If the child loses their wallet, or if the student, accidentally leaves $100 tip instead of a $10 tip, we've seen it all. We've seen wallets left in the back of taxis. It does happen. So if that happens, making sure that you as a parent have a way to get money to your child, either through the chaperone, through Venmo or PayPal or something so that they have what they need for the rest of the trip. Or if, you can just tell them at the end of the week what they owe you as a chaperone. Anything like that, just talk about it ahead of time. I know talking about money can be kind of uncomfortable, but I promise it's a lot more comfortable to talk about now than when your child is calling crying because they just lost their wallet and now they have no money. Plan ahead. It makes everything work a lot easier. I know someone said Go Henry is another great ideas for debit cards. There's a lot of good options. So start thinking about that now because some of this, like getting a debit card or something, I would imagine would take a little bit of time, which is why I wanted to talk about it now so you can get this set up if you want to. Make sure you have those conversations with your students about what is an appropriate amount of money to spend on some stuff and what is not an appropriate money, and set those really clear expectations before the trip. Will make your trip a lot less stressful to have the conversation early. Any questions about spending money for the trip or different ways that work? I know everyone always wants a dollar amount. I know personally, I don't spend a ton of money on like gifts and stuff like that when I go on the trip. I know what I personally spend on my own meals that we don't do as a group is usually right between like $100 and $150 depending on, but I don't necessarily sit down for many meals. I'm okay with eating on the go, grabbing a quick snack, that kind of stuff. And then experiences has varied a ton across all of the trips I've done. I have had years where I have spent $0 on additional experiences. I do all the free stuff and hang out. And then I've had years where I spend, $200 to $300 because I went and did all paid experiences that year. So that one just really swings depending on what you and your group want to do. So that's where that free time planning really comes into play. The last thing I want to go over is in-person meeting is April 1st. I've heard from at least one chaperone student that they have I believe a drama performance that conflicts, so we're going to meet on a different day. If there's anybody else who cannot make it, I just really need to know ahead of time. That way I can make arrangements to get you your apparel and get you the information you need on a different day. The way this is going to work is we're going to be in the gyms at the AYCC, so that's right here on North Street in Waterville. You'll come right in. From 6:15 to 6:30, you'll come in and pick up your 2 t-shirts and jacket that you get for free. Because you guys are a smaller group, I'm just going to pack up your little t-shirt orders based on the sizes you guys have given me ahead of time, so you'll have a bag with your name on it that you'll grab when you come in. You'll sit down. Strongly suggest that you meet up with whoever your roommates are, whoever your chaperone group is. If you haven't met them by this meeting, this is the time you should be meeting them. And then we're going to start the meeting promptly at 6:30. The meeting you'll be hearing mostly from Pat and Lisa. You'll finally get to skip over my voice. They're going to talk a lot about expectations for the trip, go over kind of everything in a little bit more detail. And answer any questions that you guys have. I would imagine that the meeting will go fairly quickly because you guys are a smaller group just based on years past and questions and that kind of stuff. So I'm saying we'll go until 7:30. I wouldn't be surprised if it wraps up a little bit earlier than that. I saw one question, do the shirts and jackets run true to size? Shirts, yes. The jackets, the student jackets run a little bit big. The adult jackets run true to size. And that's just because they're a different brand because they don't make both colors in the same brand anymore. So the adult jackets are slightly nicer quality. They run true to size. The student ones are closer to somewhat of our older years have looked like, and they run a little bit big. But we have all of that. We have plenty of extra t-shirts and jackets in an assorted amount of sizes for sale. They're going to be $5 each. I have so much backstock from years and years and years. So if you want extra t-shirts to wear on the trip, an extra jacket, I have that. I don't have much for inventory on long sleeves or sweatshirts. And because there wasn't a high demand for those in the last couple of years, I'm not going to order any to sell. So I will have t-shirts and jackets, But if you have heard about trips or gone on trips in years past and they've had sweatshirts and long sleeves, we're just not going to have those this year. We've talked about apparel requirements a ton, so I'm not going to go over that again, but you do need to have the right color to wear on your outside layer every single day. For $5, I would recommend grabbing a couple t-shirts or a couple extra jackets if you can. We'll only be accepting debit and credit card if you're going to buy any additional apparel. Like I said, we have limited sizes and quantity, and I just ask if people could please bring a notebook and something to write with. We have a couple tasks we have to complete in the meeting, like making our phone tree and that kind of stuff. So I need to make sure that I can have you guys write down and confirm phone numbers so we can make group texts, all that good stuff. Any questions about the in-person meeting? You'll be sitting on bleachers, so we'll all try our best so you don't have to sit on them for too long. If anyone wants to come early, you can, but there won't be much going on. Again, I keep saying you guys are a bit smaller group, so we don't have a ton of setup this year. So I'm not in need of volunteers, but I would appreciate it if anyone wants to stay for a few minutes after and help me pack up and clean up. I always appreciate that. It helps us all get home at a reasonable time. But if no one has any questions about the April 1st meeting, next steps are, I've said it every single meeting, keep talking with your chaperone group about what you want to do in your free time. Utilize the Google Drive that has the Heritage Tour maps and that whole list of activities to do. I'll share that again on the Facebook group, but that Google Drive has a ton of good resources. I have also heard from several folks that they've utilized AI and like ChatGPT this year to say, I'm in this city at this time on this day, and I have an 8th grader who's interested in X, Y, and Z. What should I go do? And AI has told them what they should go do, which is just a crazy thing that exists now. But it does. So if you're comfortable utilizing it and you want to, go for it. I just heard about that today, and I'm absolutely going to play with that tomorrow because I think that's just such an interesting component to be able to sift through the masses and masses of information to get some good recommendations. So I'll see how good those recommendations actually are. Make plans for spending money. We just talked all about it. So start thinking about it, especially if you think maybe you're going to need to get your student a debit card or something like that. Start that planning now. You should have also all gotten an email about payments today from me. I apologize for anyone who got sucked into auto pay and then the date changed. I don't know what happened on the back end. We have an email into our Daxco coordinator to figure out how that got messed up, because we can see in the history that it was correct and then it wasn't correct and it was correct again, and then it on March 1st adjusted again. So I don't know what happened, but I know that a bunch of you didn't have auto payments withdrawn on March 1st or anywhere close to that date, but I sent you instructions on how you can fix that on your end. It's not something I can update for you. Otherwise, I would take that work from you. So I apologize that has not been the smoothest of processes. Hopefully, if that's, knock on wood, our bad luck for this trip, I'll take that. It's way better than pretty much anything else. Join the Facebook group if you have not. That's where we keep posting information. I'll keep sending emails, but I know emails can land in spam boxes. So check that out. Turn on notifications if you haven't. And then our mandatory meeting, April 1st, will likely be our last meeting. I do usually set up a time right before you guys leave on the trip to have like a quick virtual check-in in case anyone has last minute questions. So we'll set something up for kind of that week before. If anyone wants to pop in, I usually just kind of set it up like open office hours. I'll be on the call for an hour or so, and if anyone needs to hop in, ask a question and go, you can have that opportunity. But otherwise, April 1st will be kind of the last touch point you guys have before gearing up and going on this trip, which is super exciting. This flies by all the time. And all of a sudden it's Heritage Tour season, which is super crazy. Everything is booked for you guys. Everything is all set. The very last thing that I am working on and I'm just waiting, is for the Air and Space Museum tickets to be released so I can snag a bunch of those for anyone who wants them. But otherwise, we are looking in great shape for the trip, and I'm so excited for you all. This is just such an awesome experience, and it's awesome that you guys get to do it. So jazzed about that. Jazzed we've been able to pull some people off the wait list to come, and make sure that as many people as possible who want it have the opportunity. That feels good. But otherwise, I won't keep you guys too late. There's a ton of information today. I'll go ahead and stop the meeting recording, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask those now.